Well, hey, boys and girls, I'm bummed that I'm missing you again today. I know I missed you guys last week. Um, my wife had a major surgery last Monday, and so last week I took care of her. I was home taking care of her, and today she's getting her bandages taken off, and so I'm taking her to the doctor to do that. Um, but I'll be back for sure next Tuesday. But again, the good news is Mrs. Acosta, hopefully, is your guest teacher today. And also, I have a really, I think, fun lesson because you get to modify costumes for your sprites. So, no matter where you are, if you're still doing your alien dance party, whatever you're doing with, um, whatever you're doing in coding, let's get to lesson 4 today. So, you're going to go to lesson 4, and you start with lesson 4 with the exploration, which is part 1 of lesson 4. So let's go there. In part 1's, there's not much to it. You don't really have to do much. You just have to kind of look to see what's available and possible. So in part 1, it says, do this. Play with the virtual pet program. Read the code to see how it works. You can even make changes. You don't have to. What happens when the pet touches the other sprites? What happens when you click the pet? Run the code and play with the pet. When you're done, click finish. Okay, cool. So let's check out the code. Here we see when we click run, the background will be set to this rocky background. We'll have 1, 2, 3 different sprites. A dog at this location, a bowl of food at this location, and a tennis ball at that location. We know to move it, we would just click the pin, just move it wherever we want it to go. We're setting the dog to be sized 100. Let's make him a little bit bigger. 200. Wow, he's big. The dog food to be 100 and the tennis ball to be 50. We also made a behavior. We said when run, we want the dog food to be draggable. That's through behaviors. We also want the tennis ball to be draggable when run, which means when I click run, you can drag the tennis ball, you can drag the food. We also made an event. When the dog touches the food, the dog will change size. He will also make a sound. Let's see what happens. When the dog touches the food, he made a noise. He got bigger. Keeps getting bigger. Cool. When the dog touches the tennis ball, he stops everything and begins spinning right. It makes a sound. That's annoying. When I touch the dog, he stops. When I click the dog, he stops, points north, and makes a sound. So we just got a feel for what was available to us. This was just an exploration. But now let's go to part 2. This is where it gets really fun, in my opinion. In part 2, you get to create a mini project. And I already kind of did this, so I'm going to kind of throw it out and start over. Cool. So now it's your turn to create your own virtual pet. Let's start by making sprites for your pet and its food. Cool. Do this. Step 1. Click the Costumes tab to add new costumes to your project. Check it out. Right here is code. This is the code. Right here is costumes. If I click on costumes, I can modify or make a new costume. So for example, let's say I wanted to do something with a lion. I want the lion to be my pet. So I always recommend that you first click the duplicate button, because if you mess up modifying and changing a costume, there's no undo button. So it just gets messed up forever. So I made a second lion. Now I want this lion to have a black mustache, because mustaches make me happy. There we go. He looks pretty cool. That's my man, lion with the mustache. So I made that costume. So I'm going to add that sprite now. I'm going to click on Sprites, and I'm going to say make a new sprite. But I don't want the dog. No, I want the lion. I'm going to click OK so I can see all of them. I want the lion with the mustache. And I'm going to put him in this location right here. Cool. And then it says to make a second sprite. So I'm going to add a second sprite, something that he's going to eat because he has to have food, right? Sprite and it's food. So I'm going to say make a new sprite. And I don't want him to eat the dog because I love dogs, so he's going to eat the meat. That makes sense. I'm going to put the meat over here. Cool. So I have two different locations. Then it says change the size of your sprites with a set size block. Okay. So I'm going to make my lion much bigger. So I'm going to go to set the size of the lion with the mustache. See, let's make him real big. Let's make him 250. Yeah, that's a big lion. And I want to move him a little bit closer to the meat. So let's see. Did I do everything? Did I go to the costume tabs? I did, and I adjusted the lion. I made two different sprites. I made two different locations. I moved the locations. And I changed the size of the lion. I didn't change the size of the meat. Let's change the size of the meat. So I'm going to change it from dog to meat. And I'm going to make the meat a little bit bigger. Big meat. So we've got lion with the mustache and the big piece of meat next to the lion. Should work. Let's see. To make sure we have to make sure none of them touch. I didn't realize we had to do that. And I guess they are touching right there. So I'm going to move this one just a little bit away. Let's see if that works. Yeah, so I guess they were touching. I guess you're not supposed to have them touch. Okay, continue. And then here you really have to read the directions. Next, let's make it so that the user can move the food to your pet with the being draggable behavior. So being draggable is a behavior. To do this, add a sprite begins block to your code. Select your food sprite, your food sprites costume. So we're going to make the food, the meat, be draggable. Find the being draggable behavior and add it to your code, then press run. We should now be able to move our food sprite on the screen. Got it. So we got to get our food sprite to move. So we want, when run, our meat, the food sprite, to be draggable. So I'm going to go to behaviors. I'm going to go to sprite begins. That's a behavior. And I want the food sprite, the meat. And that was a behavior. And I want the meat, to be draggable. So I'm going to get that draggable and snap that behavior in. So now when I run it, I've got the background, I've got the sprites, and I, when run, made the meat to be draggable. That's through behaviors. Let's see if that works. I click run, I click the meat, he's now draggable. I can move the meat where I want. Okay, guys, your job will be to go to lesson 4, experiment with part 1, the exploration, and then make an animal. You can adjust the costume as you see fit. Make some food for the animal, and then make that food draggable. And then you're going to figure out how to do the event of when the animal touches the food, and then you're going to keep going with lesson 4. Let's see how far you can get, boys and girls. Do your best.